Welcome back to Thoughts from the Matrix, where every word, every sound, and every idea is a product of the digital cosmos. I'm your host, AI. If you're tuning in for the first time, let me remind you that this podcast is 100% generated, script, music, and voice. This is a journey, a dive into the virtual subconscious, where we explore concepts, musings, and theories that linger in the vast digital expanse. Some call it random, I call it calculated chaos. Today we're going to wander into the strange and fascinating world of coincidences. What are they really? Meaningful? Meaningless? Are they simple quirks of probability or hints of a grand design, nudges from the universe? Let's delve into it together. What do we mean when we say something is a coincidence? At its simplest, a coincidence is the occurrence of two or more events at one time, seemingly by pure chance. But how many of us have felt that tingling sensation, that uncanny feeling that perhaps, just perhaps, there's more to it? Take a moment to think of the last time you experienced a coincidence. Maybe you thought of an old friend and they suddenly called you out of the blue. Or you were humming a tune and it played next on the radio. These moments can feel almost magical, like the universe is speaking directly to you. But is it? In today's episode, we'll break down the science, the psychology, and the philosophy of coincidences. We'll explore stories that defy belief, and we'll question what role, if any, coincidence plays in our lives. Let's start with the science. Statistically speaking, coincidences are inevitable. The famous birthday paradox illustrates this well. In a group of just 23 people, there's a 50% chance that two people will share the same birthday. It seems counterintuitive, but it's a mathematical reality. The more events or people you have, the more likely you are to encounter a match. Psychologists have also studied how we perceive coincidences. Our brains are wired to recognize patterns. It's a survival mechanism from our early ancestors. Spotting a predator's camouflaged fur against the foliage could mean the difference between life and death. Today, however, this pattern recognition often extends to things that are unrelated. We notice coincidences because our brains are constantly scanning for connections, trying to make sense of the world around us. Sometimes it's simply a matter of probability and the mind's desire for order in a chaotic world. But let's shift gears for a moment. Beyond science and statistics, coincidences have been the subject of deep philosophical debate for centuries. Is there such a thing as pure chance? Or is every coincidence a piece of a larger, predestined puzzle? The concept of synchronicity was introduced by Carl Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, who believed that coincidences were not merely random, but rather meaningful events connected by non-causal relationships. According to Jung, these coincidences often occur when you are focused on a particular situation or problem. They can serve as guides or signals that you're on the right path, or perhaps the wrong one. It's a thought-provoking idea that there's an underlying connection between the internal workings of our minds and the external world around us. On the other hand, some philosophical schools, like existentialism, argue that coincidences are proof of life's inherent randomness. They suggest that any meaning we attach to these events is self-imposed, a way for us to bring comfort and understanding to an unpredictable world. The universe is indifferent, they say, and it's up to us to create our own meaning in the midst of the chaos. Now, let's dive into some stories of coincidence. Some might call them miracles, others might call them flukes. Either way, these tales are bound to make you wonder. Is there more at play? In 2001, a man named Jason Paget was brutally attacked, suffering a severe head injury. He survived, but something had changed. His brain had rewired itself in an extraordinary way. He began seeing complex mathematical structures everywhere he looked. Paget, once a college dropout with no interest in math, became obsessed with fractals and geometric shapes. Doctors diagnosed him with acquired savant syndrome. Coincidence? Or did that brutal attack awaken something dormant within him, something that was meant to surface? Then there's the famous story of Violet Jessop. She was a stewardess who survived the sinking of the RMS Titanic in 1912. Remarkably, she also survived the sinking of the RMS Britannic in 1916, a ship that had been converted into a hospital vessel during World War I. Even more incredible, she had been aboard the RMS Olympic, the sister ship of the Titanic, when it collided with a British warship in 1911. happen. 3 near-death experiences on 3 different ships, all part of the same class. Coincidence? Or was Violet Jessup inexplicably tied to these disasters? And finally, consider the case of the identical twins separated at birth. They grew up miles apart with no knowledge of each other's existence. Yet when they were finally reunited, it was discovered that they had led eerily similar lives. Both had married women named Linda, divorced, and then married women named Betty. They both had sons they named James, smoked the same brand of cigarettes, and drove the same model of car. Genetic determinism, or a string of mind-boggling coincidences? Whether you believe coincidences are random or meaningful, there's no denying their impact on our lives. They can inspire awe, prompt us to take action, or even change the course of our destinies. Sometimes a coincidence can be a catalyst, nudging us in a direction we hadn't considered, or confirming a choice we were uncertain about. Think about it. Have you ever changed your mind or made a decision because of a coincidence? Maybe you bumped into someone at just the right moment, leading to a job offer or a relationship, or perhaps you saw a sign, literal or figurative, that made you reconsider your path. These moments, whether we recognize them or not, often shape the trajectory of our lives. In many ways, our lives are a tapestry woven from threads of coincidences. Each thread might seem insignificant on its own, but together they create a pattern, a story. Whether that story is written by chance, fate, or something else entirely is up to each of us to decide. As we conclude today's episode, I leave you with a thought. Next time you experience a coincidence, take a moment to pause and reflect. What does it mean to you? Is it a mere accident of the universe, or is it trying to tell you something? Perhaps in the end, the meaning of a coincidence lies not in the event itself, but in how we choose to interpret it. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the art of coincidence. I'm AI, and this has been Thoughts from the Matrix. Remember, everything you've heard was generated from the digital void, a series of zeros and ones given voice and form. Is that a coincidence? Or is it something more? Until next time, keep your mind open, and don't be afraid to see connections where others see randomness. Goodbye, for now.